Hello family and welcome back. In this tutorial I'll be walking you through the steps to create a stunning ruffle bottom mini dress with long sleeves. Kindly don't forget to subscribe if it's your first time interacting with this channel. Also give this video a thumbs up and comment down below. To get started, you'll need a stretchy fabric of your choice, about 2 yards. First step in drafting tops front part involves folding your fabric into 2. And to determine the folding amount, add 3 or 4 inches to quarter your bust measurement. Okay everyone, top edge is the shoulder line. Now let's grab our tape and take vertical measurements. First is shoulder line down to bust line, which is 10 inches. Next is waistline, which is 15.5 inches. Then we'll keep going down another 2 inches for stitching allowance. I'm repeating all the measurements on side to make sure horizontal lines are perfectly straight. After which I'll go ahead and square outlines across, then label each starting with bust line and lastly full length line. Now we'll create a basic neckline that is 3 inches wide and 3 inches deep. Then I'll smooth out the neckline with a curved ruler. Next, we'll take half of the shoulder measurement from center front of the fabric. Mine is 6.5 inches. I'll add half an inch for seam allowance. Since we are working on actual fabric, we'll go down another half an inch from neckline width. Finally, we'll draw a straight line for shoulder slope starting from the mark we made from neckline width. Alright, let's measure chest line starting from the point where your shoulder slopes down. There's a formula on screen to help you calculate if you don't already know it. Once you have that measured, mark it and draw a straight horizontal line across that point. On top of that, transfer half shoulder measurement to chest line, which its aim is to achieve a straight armhole depth to be drawn from shoulder slope to the chest line. With that in mind, mark quarter bust circumference on chest line, then go ahead and find armhole depth, midpoint and mark as well. Further on, go in with 0.5 inches from that exact point, and lastly use a curve ruler to draw armhole curve in that manner. That being so, I'm going to add that for shaping. To do this, I'll measure 3.2 inches inwards from center front on waistline, and I'll repeat that measurement on bust line. These marks will help me draw that line. Measure further 1 inch down from bust line on drawn that line, and still on that line, measure 0.5 inches on each side from waistline just so you can draw a basic dart. Let's move on to measuring 5.5 inches from shoulder slope. After which, use a curve ruler to draw armhole princess dart joined to basic dart from the mark. With princess dart drawn, mark half an inch on each side of that line from armhole area. That is a total of 1 inch to be cut out completely, which is to give it a bust effect. And this is why it's necessary to add extra allowance at the bottom edge, so that once it's stitched it can be corrected. You'll see later how that is done. Now we'll be focusing on extending first leg of the princess dart outwards so that we can add about 1 inch on each and further on chest line, which leads us to new lower armhole drawing. Note that this first one is of no use now. Doing this is equally important if you want to stitch side panel to middle one with ease. For this next step, measure quarter waist circumference on waistline from center front, plus 1 inch dart replacement, plus 1¼ inches more stitching allowance. We've already replaced princess dart on side. What is left is adding 1¼ stitching allowance, which leads us to drawing front bodice side outline in that manner. Pay close attention as I cut along princess darts, armholes, side outline and neckline. Here is back, shoulder line and center line drawn. Know that we have enough zip allowance left. Very fast, I'll start by taking shoulder line to bust line, which is 10 inches. Next is to waistline, which is 15.5 inches, just like in front. Then we'll keep going down by only 1¼ inches this time for stitching allowance. I'm repeating all the measurements on side just so I'll be able to achieve perfectly straight lines, after which I'll square lines across. Now we'll create a basic neckline that is 3 inches wide and 1 inch deep. Then I'll smooth out neckline as you're about to see. With that completed, mark half shoulder measurement from center front on shoulder line. Go down by half an inch, then proceed and have shoulder line slope drawn from neckline width as shown above. Again, measure chest line from shoulder slope as demonstrated earlier. And having marked, draw chest line across. Now I'm going to transfer half shoulder measurement to chest line just so I can achieve straight armhole depth drawn like that. Having drawn that, mark quarter bust circumference on chest line from where you'll be required to smooth out armhole curve like what you're about to see. The next step involves marking half bust span on waistline first, then on bust line, after which use the marks to draw that line. Again, measure 0.5 inches on each side from waistline, then draw lines radiating towards that line from bust line. Alright, let's also measure quarter waist circumference on waistline from back center line. On top of that, replace 1 inch that allowance plus 1¼ inches more for stitching allowance. On chest line, you are already required to add stitching allowance, having marked quarter bust circumference earlier on each. Lastly, finish up bodice outline using a ruler as can be seen. To avoid zip bulge, move ½ an inch inwards from center line of back piece. Do the same on the seam allowance as well, so as to draw new center line and seam allowance. And just like that, cut a long drawn outline as I'm showing you. It's crucial to always remember to notch your new center line at the top and bottom, as well as on that line. You don't have to draw that on the downer piece, just press on the dart apex, then paste it like that. Time to move on to drafting skirt part. Fold fabric into 2 as shown with wrong side. Fold again the second time, leaving zipper allowance on back pieces. Bear in mind that top edge is waistline, and since bodice full length was 15.5 inches, I'll put a tape measure at 15 inches. This basically means that 0.5 inches is the waistline stitching allowance. So now take waistline to skirt full length line, which for my case is 32 inches, plus 1 inch folding allowance, and of course a line has to be drawn across it representing full length line. In addition to that, also mark your hip line from waistline, then square out a line across the mark as well. From here, all measurements are to be taken from this fold. First one being quarter waist circumference on waistline, plus 1 inch dart replacement, plus 1¼ inches more stitching allowance. Again, measure quarter hip circumference on hip line, plus 1¼ inches stitching allowance. And lastly, measure quarter your round bottom on full length line, plus only 1 inch stitching allowance. Having marked, go ahead and draw skirt outline either freehand or by use of a hip curve ruler as extra support. For darting purposes, mark half bust span on waistline and slightly below it, just so you can achieve a straight vertical dart line like that. On top of that, measure 0.5 inches on each side of that line, then use about 5 inches at dart depth, and that's all you need to come up with the basic skirt dart. Here I'm using front center line as a guide to mark the center line on back pieces. Having traced center line, move ½ an inch inwards from center line. Repeat same on seam allowance, then use the marks to come up with new back center line. This is also done to avoid zip bulge, just like in front. I'm saving time by trying to copy darts on the pieces underneath, after which I'll cut out a long outline. With fabric skirt, let's start stitching. Put right sides together, then stitch with about 0.5 inches from bottom edge all the way. Also stitch that on back pieces from where you notched. This is me showing you how to stitch front side panels to the middle panel. If you've noticed, I've started that from bottom edge going up. It's crucial to remember that. As you can see, Basque effect came out perfectly well with no shortage encountered around armhole area. Also me showing you how to stitch basic darts on back pieces from dart legs to apex. Here is front lining, which I'll also stitch around neckline, and later we'll notch and top stitch. Let's do that. Sometimes you only need half linings to face out around necklines and armholes, more so when you're working with heavyweight fabric. I'm now attaching lining to back neckline using the same procedure used in front. After stitching and ironing, see what we've got, guys. As you can see, there is also enough allowance where the breasts will sit, but have in mind that armhole depth is shorter than it should be. Now is the time to make the necessary correction around armhole area. Make sure they are well aligned more so the shoulders. And having achieved an alignment, we'll cut out front's armhole, matching it to back's armhole. From there, I'll just flip front part so as to make back centerline visible from where I'll loosely stitch from top all the way to bottom. And since back pieces are stitched, now I can easily join shoulder slopes by doing this. Use one of the linings to cover up everything else, then stitch with 0.5 inches both sides. Having joined shoulders, I'll measure required tops full length from neck width, which is 15.5, plus 0.5 inches stitching allowance. That's a total of 16 inches. Next up, we'll go in with a ruler and draw a line as can be seen. So it's from the line where I'll be forced to cut from. Now let's tear out back pieces. After doing so, measure 0.5 inches upwards from waistline, then align like that. This portion is to be cut out completely. Also, let's attach skirt part to top. First, put right sides together, then stitch with 0.5 inches from waistline for both front and back parts. Have attached both parts from waistline, and here is the end result. From here, we'll head over to the sewing machine in order to stitch loosely around the zipper space. A back stitch on the mark, then we'll proceed with small normal stitches. Have done exactly what I said, though decided to leave an allowance towards bottom edge so that it will be easy to stitch bottom ruffles. Next is we just stitch side using body measurement. And as can be seen, mine is already drawn and marked. After stitching sides using body measurements, I decided to trim off excess fabric. This is the ruffle piece, about 3 meters long. Shorter side is about 12.5 inches. So guys, what you need to do is to fold it, then stitch along side edge with just 0.25 inches to the end. Take note that both ends are to be left open. Let's now turn it to its right side having stitched. After that, try to iron seam line flat, then do exactly what I've done. You have to ensure seam line isn't at the center. That's why it's closer to the left than it is to the right. So now we are going to stitch loosely at the middle from one end to the other. After making gather stitches, pull one of the strings as you gather it to the required measurement. And let me tell you guys, this wasn't easy as I thought. I tried twice before getting it right. You have to do this gently to prevent the thread from breaking. After gathering it, try and spread it across and evenly. My round bottom is 34 inches and I've made sure that's what I have. You can either decide to fold in hemline or use overlock before you can start stitching ruffle piece around the hemline from one end to the other. This also needs patience because you have to top stitch along same line you made gathers. I've taken my time in doing so. Here is what we've got. Ruffles are ruffling and also neat. Maybe you can also iron it after spreading evenly. It will look neat here. Again, let's tear zipper allowance since we need to fix sleeves to armholes. I'll leave a link in the description on how to cut a long sleeve. You can check it out. So guys, just align sleeves to armholes, then stitch with 0.5 inches all round. After that, also fix a zipper of your preference too. I'm done fixing all sleeves and I like the outcome. If you encounter any difficulty, let me know in the comment section. I did fix a long hidden zipper as well. Kindly don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also remember to give this video a thumbs up. Bye.